Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in Death Card Tactics we are looking at Adeptus Custodes, a competitive review, and actually this will be an interview with a competitive player, Tanagor, where we will be discussing the new Adeptus Custodes Codex, and then how some competitive lists for Custodes, and then discussing also what could Death Card do, some strengths and weaknesses for Death Card, and some of the tips and tricks that you should maybe look out for when facing the Custodes. So with no further ado, let's get started. So today, the 17th of February, so Adeptus Custodes, the Golden Defenders of the Emperor, are a common sight at the tabletop. Now they seem also to be on their way on the top of the meta. Already very good results in the Las Vegas Open. Even before now, they have received a lot of point cuts. So Custodes had around 60% win rate. That was before point cuts to several of the models. So this competitive list that the competitive player Tanagor has become cheaper, and he could add some more things into the list. So as I said, I will be interviewing seasoned player Tanagor to get a competitive look at the new codex. We will look at some of the codex highlights. We will be looking at discussing the new things in the codex, and then looking at the competitive Custodes 2000 points list, and then looking through the relics, the traits, all the units. Tanagor will be discussing the reason for taking them, how to use them, etc., and then discussing strategies, and then with a death card perspective to see what can we possibly do to face the Custodes. So very big thanks to Tanagor, and let's get started looking at the Custodes Codex.
Well, hello everyone on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to go slightly over the new Custodes Codex and some thoughts and ideas on how to deal with them and how to play with them. So our first thing we're going to go over is like, what is it to play Custodes? Like, how do you play them? What can you expect? Their strengths lie in like you're playing Hero Hammer. Like your characters will be stronger than your opponent's characters by a mile sometimes. And even your weakest models in your army will be sometimes stronger than your opponent's general. So that is something like Death Card has something very similar, where you have like insanely strong characters, and then that fuels your army. You also have a weapon skill and a ballistic skill of a 2-up, and most of the time you will have reroll ones, which is something that Death Card doesn't generally have. You guys have the plague weapons, which is the reroll on the wound roll. You will have a 2-up armor save. This is with a little caveat. It's a 2-up armor save. Always keep in mind the Blade Champion does not have a 2-up armor save. It's a 3-up. And the Venatari also have a 3-up armor save. Not that that's super relevant on the Blade Champion. He's mostly doing his thing. He'll have character protection. And a 4-up Invul army-wide most of the time. Which gives you that extra layer of protection, and you have toughness 5 or more.
Yeah, exactly. So this is very important playing against, for example, Death Card, which can reduce a bit the toughness, but starting with a high toughness is really strong.
Like some sister models became troops, which was amazing for the army. So you no longer have to pay 120 to 150 points to have 3 guys stand on a backline objective the whole game and just like stare the opponent in the eye. You can just have some cheaper squads now. Alaris Terminators can now also be fielded in like from 1 to 3 models. So you can have like 1 Terminator just like teleport in and do stuff. It's not a very popular mechanic, but it is possible. Also, what can you expect in Custodes is like you have amazing stratagems that only got cheaper. Even though some of them were changed slightly, so it's become much cheaper, like the transhuman. It used to cost 2 CP. It's now only 1 CP if your model count is lower. The no reroll hits, wounds, and damage is also 1 CP now. So the damage profile and your CP profile, like your pool of CP, is so much larger than before. Things that you can do. And that's what really is with this army. It's like the finesse and knowing when to use your stratagems. It's an army for beginners. And it's also a very forgiving army for beginners. Like you can make a mistake with Custodes by not deploying correctly or being out in the open. And if the dice are in your favor with that 4-up invul and high toughness and high save, you might survive. And I hope you learn from that mistake then for future games. But like an army like Death Guard, if you do your movement wrong or even your deployment is incorrect, there is no way that you can recover. Basically, you don't have the speed. With Custodes,
I think I think because I think for Death Guard in 8th edition with a 5+ Feel No Pain, there was some forgiveness in the game, but the speed, of course, if you place them wrong, a lot of your important units were left out in the corner somewhere. But durability was good in the open somehow. It was forgiving because of the durability. You could take some hits at least. Yeah,
exactly. And then like Custodes are also rather inexpensive to collect. I'm going to put that in a little quotes because we're going to get to Forge World in a bit. But they are also fairly easy to paint. It's you paint however you want, of course, but it's mostly gold. They are a little bit larger models, nice and open poses. If I can give people a tip, try and do a little bit of sub-assembly on the cloaks because it's like really annoying to paint those. And it's a low model count, so you can spend some extra time painting your models and make them look unique. It's not like you're painting 40 poxwalkers in this where you're like, all right, I'm going to spend some time. So you can really easy for beginners is you have mostly the same data sheets. Like most of your units move the same distance. You have the same weapon and ballistic skill, the same weapon profile, the same damage output, the same AP. Most of the stuff is AP -3, maybe AP -2 on the axis, and so on. So it's very easy for beginners to, like get a grasp of the army and what to expect defensive-wise as well. Now, if we go into the weaknesses of Custodes, it is mortal wounds. You have the highest cost per model per wound in the entire game, and as it should be. That's what Custodes are in the lore. You are the best. And that's also how you need to treat this army. Don't be scared of picking a fight. You are the master of combat and you will dictate the flow of combat. Now, later in the list, I'll give you guys some tips on what you can do and what maybe not to do. There is one problem though, like I said, it's mortal wounds. And also you can be overwhelmed by the opponent. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day in the game, you only have so many attacks. No matter that you hit on 2s and mostly wound on 2s or 3s and you do 2 damage and so on and so on, at the end of the game, you only have a set number of attacks. And if your opponent has an enormous amount of models, there is sometimes nothing you can do against that. Like if your 3 custodians in the back line are swarmed by, I don't know, I'm going to say like 20 gene stealers. Even though you have 9 attacks and you can shoot in combat, it's still going to take you 1 or 2 turns to shoot through that army. And even worse, if you lose some custodians along the way, you lose a large chunk of your damage potential as well. So you can be bogged down and you can be screened. Something that absolutely terrifies me when I'm facing Death Guard is like a unit of 20 poxwalkers. Why? Even if I shoot them and I can't wipe them completely because, again, Custodes shooting is very accurate, but it's 2 damage. I will be able to kill 5 to 10 poxwalkers with my normal shooting, but you have that stratagem that just resurrects them on, I believe it's a 3+ that you have to throw.
Yeah, seven dice on 3+. Yeah, so a couple come back, and
a couple come back, and not only that, they come back just in unit cohesion, so they come closer to you. And then you have that one stratagem CP thingy where you do mortal wounds in combat, and that is truly terrifying. While it sounds like, why would Custodians be scared of poxwalkers? They pose an enormous threat. They pose a real threat, and that's kind of cool, and the nuance in the game. Also, toughness 8 can be challenging to overcome at range. Custodians have not that much high toughness shooting and so on. -1 damage is detrimental to this army. You'll see once we go through the list again, you'll see that like 90% of our army is damage 1 or 2. So having like your melee profile cut in half is very challenging and sometimes even detrimental. I will also give some tips on how to work around that. So again, one of the weaknesses, it's flat 2 damage. So 3 damage models, Terminators, etc., can slip through your grasp of killing potential. And then the last one is a Forge World. To really play this army competitively, you will have to invest in Forge World.
And basically, my thoughts is that it's a very elite army that has the durability at least on par with Death Guard or better, and they are faster and more lethal. But I think, as you say, some of the weaknesses Death Guard maybe can capitalize on, and the Disgusting Resilience helps us against the flat 2 damage. When I played the previous codex, the 3+ Invul of the Custodies was really oppressive, and that seems to have been changed. But the mortal wounds now, there is some protection, etc. So of course it's going to be a difficult matchup for Death Guard that is not as high on the meta as the Custodies at the moment.
Yeah. All right. So the new codex brings actually some amazing changes. I was actually worried for a while that the Aegis of the Emperor would only give a 5-up invul. Now, luckily, it's army-wide 4-up and a 6-up feel no pain against mortal wounds, and it will go to a 4-up feel no pain, or it can go up to a 4-up feel no pain with some shield hosts. Now, we're going to talk about the shield hosts in a little bit. We also have the Daughters of the Abyss rule. This is basically our sisters are now part of the army. It's the talons of the Emperor, as it always should have been, actually. So the sisters, some of them are now troops, which is amazing. It's 60 points. They're actually not bad, but like they're not great either. I would compare them to Poxwalkers. Golden Light, it's a straightforward like deep strike. That's it. It's nothing more, nothing less. Custodies don't deep strike on 7 inches or something like that. It's just a deep strike.
And this the 6+ mortal wound protection, before it was only for psychic, right?
Or before it was indeed only in the psychic phase that you. And would
now
get
it's also.
Now it's for mortal wounds, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So the Poxwalker strats and the fallout abilities or stuff like that, plague grenades or something. It's a better protection.
It's much better. Complex. The martial Katahs. Basically, you have 6 shield hosts and you have 6 martial Katahs. It's that simple. So 1 for each, basically. And it sort of works like tactical doctrines of Space Marines, with the added benefit that you before, and this is sort of strange as well. So before you roll off who gets the first turn, you have to pick 3 martial Katahs. You pick 3. You roll the dice, who gets first. In your command phase, you have to activate the one that you picked first. So you pick 3. You have to activate the one you picked first, and it has 2 benefits. You are allowed to choose which one of the two benefits you would like. In your next command phase, you can either choose the benefit that you did not choose in your current active martial kata, or you can move on to number 2. And then once you have selected something maybe in your second martial kata, you can move on to your number 3, or you can stay in number 2 and get another benefit. If you run out of choices, that's your problem. You get nothing then.
Okay.
So that is something to keep in mind. Now, in a 2000 point game, this is actually trivialized. We'll get into that later. But there are ways of rearranging the order of your martial katas. And there is a 1CP stratagem where you can put one unit that you select into another martial kata.
Okay, but like the Space Marines could do something similar. Yeah,
exactly. But you do lose your current benefits of your current martial kata.
Yeah.
And so then we move on to the shield hosts. Like I've mentioned before, like you say yourself, they are like play companies. You have 6 shield hosts, and in theory, 2 benefits. You get them all the time. You also get a shield host trait, so it's like a warlord trait. And actually, the one that we choose is also pretty good. You get a shield host specific stratagem and a preferred martial kata. So what does it mean, a preferred martial kata? If in your in the phase before the first round begins, you choose your 3 martial katas, each one of your shield hosts has a preferred one. Now for the one we're going to take, it's Rendax, just to keep it straightforward. If I go into the Rendax martial kata stance, I choose one of my 2 benefits, and then I can activate a once per game shield host ability saying like, for this round, I will get both benefits. But you do have to choose one first. It's not that you go into the shield host Rendax and you say, I choose both, and then next turn I choose either one of them. You have to choose one, and then you can say, okay, you can take the second benefit as well for one round of combat.
Okay.
So you have to watch out with that as well. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you can have your preferred martial kata 3 times. It's only 2. Adeptus Custodes infantry units and the Anathema Sicana, they get the OPSEC, no longer the bikers.
This do any of the Custodes count as 2 models or stuff like that, or is it 1 model each?
Exactly. So each custodian, to my knowledge, is 2 models for OPSEC purposes, or like 2 models basically. So you have OPSEC and it counts as 2 models, and also more importantly, also for the lookouster rule. Yeah, and this is also very important actually. If you have a squad of 3 bikers with your biker captain going up the battlefield, I've had quite a few opponents trip up actually, like they shoot at my bikers, they kill a biker, and then they want to put all their shots into my shield captain. But because there are still 2 bikers, each counting for 2 models, which is 4 models, I still have the lookouts rule. Then this is a more in-depth of the martial kata. So as we've discussed before, there are 6, and you have to choose 3 of them. Now, in my opinion, Callistus will be 99% of the time your first pick, as we see here on the screen. It has amazing benefits. Like the first one is each time a unit advances, roll 1 additional d6 and discard 1 of the results. It's kind of funny worded that it doesn't say like drop the lowest. Also, it doesn't matter because even if you roll a 6, you don't have to advance the full 12 inches then. Like it's kind of strange, but you know, it's GW. They do their thing. The first
this was actually this was actually the Noxious Blightbringer before he became so nerfed. This was his trait with the bell, and that was quite good, especially for a slow army as Death Guard. So that would be nice again, but we don't have it.
Maybe in the future. I hope that they do make some changes and some updates.
Something. Some advance, some to make it a bit faster. But yeah, this is really good when you start.
This is really good. It makes your averages of your advance distance much higher.
Yep.
And the second one is actually the one that brings Custodes to that extra level. It says each time you make a normal move or advance, you are still allowed to shoot, because it allows you to normal move and advance, and you can still shoot as if you have remained stationary. Now, this only counts in the shooting phase, this remain stationary. You cannot charge or do other things like that. But since the bikers auto-advance 20 inches in total, and the Meltas have a 24-inch range, there are very little deployment areas left for your opponent to be safe. Now, don't make the mistake I did, where I was like, oh, I'll just fly my 6 bikers to the front with my captain and Melta something down, and then I'm out in the open. You don't always have to do this. Sometimes it's more advisable to just, if you picked Callistus as your first one, to take the extra advance, like the extra dice on the advance.
The first
try
one
to get that for try to get, if you get first turn and your opponent deployed really well, just take the extra advance, position yourself very well where you can heroically intervene with your characters maybe, and so on, even though you advanced and stuff like that. But it really helps out. Then you have the other S tier is Rendax. This is actually the preferred martial kata of the Emperor's Chosen. So you can have, for one combat round, battle round, you can have both stances active. And it's actually really good, even though it's only against vehicles or monsters. But like those high toughness, like Plague Burst Crawlers comes to mind.
Yeah.
To chew through them, hit rolls of a 6 is an auto wound, which is already really, really good. And then you get an extra strength, so +1 strength on your charge, or if you heroically intervened against a vehicle or a monster. So this pushes your strength on your axis from 8 to 9. So you're wounding on a 3 all of a sudden.
Yeah.
The same with the bikers. Your strength goes from 7 to 8, so you're wounding on a 4, and you have a +1 to wound, so that's already a 3. It really helps pushing through a little bit of damage. Now, then you have Katahs. That one is also really interesting, and if I am correct, I'm just going to check. Yeah, Katahs. Katahs is actually the preferred one from the Shadow Keepers. And the really good part here is the first stance is you cannot reroll once to hit in melee against Custodes if you choose this combat stance. So against a melee heavy army like Blood Angels and so on, this is already detrimental. And then their second benefit is actually also really strong. I think it's an enemy unit, excluding vehicles or monsters. If they are in engagement range of infantry, you cannot fall back. You have to like roll off a d6, and whoever wins the d6 roll, you either get to fall back or not at all. Something that also might help if you don't want your opponent to fall back is at the beginning of your opponent's movement phase or charge phase, particularly now the movement phase, you can Tanglefoot something that's in combat with you, and if you roll high enough, your opponent might not actually get far enough away from your units to get out of engagement range. If you position yourself right. But you can only use Tanglefoot once per battle round now.
Yep.
So that's Katahs. The Katahs is actually also A tier. Why? It gives you the ability, and this is where it gets interesting. You have 2 stances. One is subtract 2 inches from pile-in and consolidate. Now, for Death Guard, you guys don't care at all. It's like
the Poxwalkers,
the
Poxwalkers care.
Exactly.
And I don't know if
that you will be wrapped.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you know that Poxwalkers are coming, you can put the one unit that is closest to them for 1 CP in the Katahs, and maybe throw out a Tanglefoot, try and reduce their charge distance that way, and just pay 1 extra CP in your command phase and reduce their pile-in by 2 extra inches. It might save you. And then the second part is actually really interesting and actually really good against Death Guard. It gives each one of your units the ability to get an extra attack, but all your attacks damage goes from 2 to 1, or straight to 1, actually. I think it's straight to 1. But the interesting part about this is that it is an ability on the unit. So when you activate them and you choose your attacks and you allocate stuff, this is the time when you choose to activate this. So Trajan would never activate this. The Achilles and the Galatas Dreadnought would never activate this for an extra attack. And that's the really cool part about this one, is you can choose to use it. It's not like you choose this stance and it just happens.
Yeah. So it's really good, cool. Because so for the flat 2 damage that Death Guard will be having as 1, then you can choose with Takatarai to treat it as 1, and then you just get more attacks.
Yeah, so you get 1 extra attack per model. Per model, it's damage anyway. So what do you care?
It's damage
you get
1 anyway.
Attack. Yeah,
exactly.
Clear winner for beginning players and maybe competitive players is the Emperor's Chosen. Simply because the shield host fight style, as you see, the Magna Imperator, which, if my Latin is still good enough, means the Great Emperor. So you're basically using the Great Emperor's fighting style, which so you're already hitting on 2s.
Yeah.
And what does this give you? 1 free hit or wound roll reroll per unit activation. So in the shooting phase you can do this, and in the fighting phase you get to do this. This makes your averages even better.
Yeah.
This is what pushes Emperor's Chosen into the top spot of S tier. And then the second part is also super S tier. It gives you a 4 up feel no pain against mortal wounds. This is just detrimental against some armies, like Thousand Suns. You're cutting their psychic potential in half.
Oh man, yeah.
Their shooting and fighting potential is nowhere near you.
Yeah, and this is where you see that if you see an enemy with really elite models and they have 20, 30 models, and you want to like mortal wound the living daylight out of them, but then you can't because they are 4+ involved. So it's terrible, because that's how you would treat a super elite army, just mortal wound them. But
exactly.
But
also,
I think also it's amazing that you get the shield host. They give you 2 traits, and I'm thinking the Death Guard Plague Companies, they don't get any benefit. You get some access to stuff, but you don't get anything. You get a contagion you can select. That's strange. We need something.
And the really strong part here is that your Dreadnoughts are part of your shield host. So your Dreadnoughts also get this. So you have 4 up against mortal wounds on your Dreads as well.
Yeah.
The Dreadnoughts do not get the martial Katahs.
Okay.
That is something that I was actually rather sad about. In my mind, it doesn't make sense that if a custodian is mortally wounded and he gets put into a Dreadnought, he all of a sudden forgets how to fight as part of the martial Katahs. So all the martial Katahs do not affect the Dreadnoughts, but the shield hosts do. The Emperor's Chosen's 1 CP specific CP stratagem is also amazing. It actually allows you to, for 1 CP, put a unit into another shield host. So if I want to reduce someone's melee attacks, I can put my teleporting shield captain in my command phase. I put him into the Shadow Keepers, and you charge me, for example, and all of a sudden I would just be able to teleport into engagement range, and you have -1 attacks, and so on. So you can really play like tricks with these things as well. And that's what's really cool about the Emperor's Chosen. You can just pay 1 CP and you can just say, this guy is now Shadow Keepers. Keep in mind, if your opponent does do this, that unit loses the Emperor's Chosen benefits. So no
they
more
can't get
4
this.
up against.
Yeah.
So if your opponent does that, like mortal wounds that guy. Like,
yeah, exactly.
exactly.
If you survive, yeah.
If you survive,
Totally.
yeah, or just like it's until your next command phase. So the list is basically this is the list basically. So you have your battalion. You of course take Trajan after the points cut. It's a very, very strong model. You just take an Alara Shield Captain, also T6 now, very strong. The of course the unkillable biker captain always, and then some new spice, an Inquisitor. This is actually a recent addition. We don't have anything to do in the psychic phase, and it was either this Inquisitor for 60 points or an extra squad of prosecutors. But in the current meta, the prosecutors are so fragile. There is so much non-line of sight shooting that they are so fragile. And the Inquisitor actually opens up a whole set of secondaries, and secondaries are sort of a problem for Custodes. There are not many great ones. So that's basically the list. We have then 2 squads of 3 Custodes with sword and shield. They're meant to hold the backline together with the prosecutors. Then we have 2 Achilles Dreadnoughts. One has the Eternal Penitent buff for reroll charges. And most of the time, he will also be put into Deep Strike because he can reroll charges anyway. And it gives you that little versatility of where to bring him down. Of course, Galatas Dreadnought is just amazing. If you're not a fan of the 5-up invul of Achilles Dreadnought, maybe consider a second Galatas Dreadnought. They are so strong. It's amazing. Then the Vexilla Praetor with the Vexilla Magnifica. I used to, not so long ago, run the Vexilla Defensor, I believe it's called, which gives you light cover. But the annoying part is that Hive Guard, with their non-line of sight shooting, ignore light cover, so you don't get any benefit at all. And the Tau as well, their Strength 5, what is it called, Smart Missile things, also ignore light cover. So this brought me over the edge to just give dense cover, the -1 to hit, because it's so much stronger against like orcs, Tau, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And then this is basically the punch of your army. 2 squads of 3 Virtus Praetors with the salvo launcher, and they are actually so strong, and you can defend them so well. That they are borderline oppressive. While the rest of your army is moving up the board, they are already in the back line causing problems.
I think it's amazing to look at an army that has such a low model count. So it's like 25. So now when I'm taking my army for a fight, I need to pack a lot of models and poxwalkers and plague marines and what have you. And in here you have a model count of 25. So as you said, easy to paint, and then you have 2,000 points and strong on the table.
We only pick 2 relics, and actually, if you ever go through the book, there are so many amazing relics. The Praetorian Plate is actually really, really fun. It gives you straight up +1 toughness, but you have to use it on a Terminator model. And it has a super cool and super unique ability. It allows you to teleport from anywhere on the battlefield. There are some criteria, of course. You cannot be in engagement range. You have to end your teleportation within 3 inches of a friendly unit, and you have to end in engagement range. So how you have to visualize this this relic, there's basically a 5-inch bubble around any unit in your Custodes force where this guy can pop up. And then the Castellan's Mark, for newer players, this might seem like redeploy, like who cares? But actually,
everybody cares.
Exactly. Redeploying is maybe one of the strongest abilities in the game, because some armies alpha strike, and with alpha strike we mean like their turn 1, turn 2 potential, damage potential, and movement potential is so big that being out of position in your deployment is going to cost you the game. And what this allows you to do is you simply pick 2 units, except for your sisters. So it has to be a shield host unit, and you can redeploy them. If I can give people some tips for this, always deploy defensively. And if you get turn 1, move up your 2 biker squads into an offensive position and move from there. Try not to do the other way around, where you deploy offensively and then have to use your 2 squad redeploys to put something in defensive position. It's much better to go on the offense then. That's something that, like, this will also help you master this phase of the game, because the game is already starting in your deployment.
Yeah, exactly. And you can lose it. You can lose a game with poor deployment. That's
exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, that's definitely. And this relic will help you master that phase. Even what players that I know do is they take a screenshot or like a picture with their camera, like, this was my deployment, and then post game they will look and be like, all right, what would have happened if I deployed this way and that way. So
what scares me with enemies that can redeploy, because at Death Guard we can't, what scares me is especially something like with Custodes, where you have such high value units. When you put your bikes on one side, I want to put something maybe that can shoot at them on that side or counter them. Then if you can move 2 of your units, which is a big chunk of points, and then just put everything on one flank, then you are like, all right, I'm totally outgunned on that side.
And this relic costs 1 CP.
Yeah, that's great.
Then the warlord traits and the captain commander traits. This is a whole boatload of stuff that we get relatively cheap. This army starts with 8 CP still, even though we have 2 relics and I believe like 5 or 6 warlord traits and so on. So the Master of Martial Strategy and Champion of the Imperium, those are the 2 stratagems that Trajan gets baseline. And Trajan also has to be your warlord, which is not a bad thing. But he gives you, whenever you use a CP, you roll a d6. On a 5 up, you get that CP back. Of course, only once per battle round. Champion of the Imperium lets Trajan heroically intervene 6 inches instead of 3, and he rerolls once to hit himself as well.
That's nice.
That's really nice for him. Then you also take Superior Creation. It gets a good old 5 up, feel no pain. Trajan has this baked into his profile, and it's a warlord trait. So in reality, if you look at it this way, Trajan actually gets 3 warlord traits.
Yeah. So the 5+ every time I hear about people having 5+ feel no pain, it gives me great pain.
Exactly.
Because that's what we lost in Death Guard.
And I think it was actually the 5 up feel no pain is starting to get better than the -1 damage sometimes.
Oh yeah, it is for most stuff. Now, for example, our Death Shroud are very good, but mortal wounds is like, yep, there you lost 2 Death Shroud.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
It's horrible.
Horrible, yeah.
Then the Impregnable Mind, which is one of my favorites. It makes your model count as 2 extra models, which is really strong for OPSEC. And you can also do a Deny the Witch once per battle round at a +1. So it's really good.
Would this be as a 4 models then, if they count?
Yes, you count as 4 models. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So you can really trick your opponent into losing an objective with this guy if he has the Impregnable Mind. There is also the Eagle's Eye, which is reworked from before, but it gives you an extra wound. And always watch out with the Eagle's Eye. If you go over 9 wounds, you lose your lookout, sir.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, don't do that. The Radiant Mantle is a straight up -1 to hit. It's super straightforward, but it's amazing. And then, so these were the warlord traits. Then you have captain commander traits. These are sort of like points value that you can pay to give your shield captains an added benefit. And you can no longer take 2 Virtus shield captains on a bike, for example, or 2 Alaris and stuff. You can only pick 1 of each. And the Alara Shield Captain, we will give him the Unstoppable Destroyer. So he gets an extra inch on his pile in and consolidate. And then the best part, you can pile in and heroically intervene in any direction, even when you're based. But you do have to end in engagement range with something. But this can be a real character killer. Like he will teleport into combat with your Death Shrouds, and then he'll move to your Foul Blight spawn and have some fun there. And since he technically didn't heroically intervene or charged, he fights first. And so on and so on. The Virtus Shield Captain, because Custodes characters no longer give the reroll once to hit or wound to themselves, the tip of the spear is really worth the 15 points. So every time you charge or heroically intervene, you can reroll once to hit and wound still with the captain, which
so
also brings him.
Yeah. So it's like 2+, hitting on 2+, rerolling once. That's you nearly hit everything, and then rerolling.
And then like
wounding. Wounding is also
Strength 7 +1 to wound. Also reroll once to wound, and then you still have your Magna Imperator reroll if you really want to, and so on. So the Inquisitor, like I said, it's a new edition. We're still trying it out, but we mainly try to take this. It's an extra deny if needed. He can also do some like secondaries, which are really good because later we'll go into the secondaries. We don't have a lot of good choices. Currently, I prefer Terrify to turn off Overwatch because Tau is a thing now. It's really, really good where you can turn off Overwatch. If you don't like this, or like you don't like him going up the board, you can take him out and put in a squad of sisters or an Alaris Terminator. It's the same points costs.
I'm thinking the only thing I'm thinking for the Psyker is that if you play 1,000 Suns or something like that, then they can choose their secondaries where, okay, you have one Psyker, we have 15 Psykers, we'll just kill more modules in the Psychic phase. So that could be difficult for some armies, but still, it's not easy for them to kill.
That's definitely a thing. But like as Custodes, you are not scared of 1,000 Suns.
All right.
Then the Alara Shield Captain, which looks amazing. It's one of the most cool models in the game. But why do we take him over the Blade Champion? If you compare the Alaris and the Blade Champion, the Blade Champion is actually not a lot better in combat. He does have some benefits, but he doesn't give an aura of reroll once. And Custodes is more an army where stacking buffs on something elevates it to that next level. And the Blade Champion on his own is not that great, in my opinion. The Alaris Captain does what you want a captain to do. He has T6, so all of a sudden he's already like a little bit more tanky. He can teleport wherever he wants on the battlefield. He can teleport back to the Vexilla if needed. So you teleport him up the board. He does his thing, and you just take a step back out of combat and you pay 1 CP and you teleport back home. And he stays there on an objective doing his thing. And those are things that the Blade Champion doesn't have. And with the Warlord trade, he also counts as 4 models at OPSEC. You can steal objectives away from your opponent. As I said here, the Blade Champion feels more at home in Solar Watch because he can advance and charge and stuff like that. So that's this guy. He's really good, but he's squishy. So that's why we give him the superior creation and not the biker. The biker captain will be surrounded by 6 other bikes. This guy really goes and teleports into combat, and I've learned my lesson to just give him superior creation, and he also gets the relic, the cloak for the -1 to hit. The shield captain, everybody knows and actually hates this guy. He's actually even better.
Tell me about it.
And he's now protected by more. Now it says here that he has superior creation. We don't actually give this to him anymore. He also doesn't have the magic bike anymore that lets him reroll charges and gives him a 3-up invul. That bike doesn't exist anymore. It's now it does still give you reroll charges, but it no longer gives you a 3-up invul, and it allows you once per game to basically also teleport wherever you want, but you can't charge or shoot. So it's not very good. But he's actually amazing, and I would, if I could, I would give him the Auric Exemplar Warlord trait, which is the our shield host specific one. It actually says after he's done his combat, for the amount of models that he killed, he gets extra attack up to a maximum of 4. So this guy can really kill some poxwalkers, or you can do some interesting stuff where you attack, you charge into poxwalkers and
kill a lot,
Blighthaller, and you kill a lot of the poxwalkers, and you use your extra attacks then on the tank, for example. But sadly, because we use our 2 warlord trait trick, we give it to the Alaris already. I feel that he's, like I said, he's already beefy enough at T6, 9 wounds. He has 6 biker friends that are just like roaming around him. And if he's in trouble, like I said, the Alaris captain can also just teleport him and have some fun. Then Trajan Valoris. What it says here, what more do we need to say? It's Trajan Valoris. He no longer has a 3-up invul. His moment shackle no longer heals you for D3. You don't get a free stratagem anymore, and he has to be your warlord. These all sound like negatives, and if you think like that, you're a heretic. And he's even better. GW really did like a solid on Trajan. I would say he's an auto-include. He no longer gives the aura to reroll once to hit and wound to himself, but he lost his 3-up invul and it went to a 4-up. But he gets a 5-up feel no pain.
That's strong.
For it instead, which brings him almost up to the level of the biker captain. But this guy hits much harder than the biker captain. It's flat 3 damage, strength 10, AP -3. Like, he will go through things. Also, because he's Trajan, he's such a good guy. He gives you an extra CP. So you have to imagine this guy costs 160 points. Gives you an extra CP. He, in theory, gives you 3 warlord traits. 2 of them are the best ones in the book. He hits like a truck, and he's almost as tanky as the unkillable bike captain. And like the moment shackle also is maybe better. You don't get a free CP stratagem anymore. But since our stratagems have become so cheap, there are no more 3 CP stooping dives or teleport homers. You don't really need it that much. There are many games where I will go into turn 3 and I'll still have like 7 or 8 CP left over, and I'm like, all right, start to do some stuff. There's one interesting one though that keeps him alive most of the time. When you fail a save roll on something or a railgun, you can choose to reduce the damage to 0.
That's nice.
So if he does take a melta to the face, 5 or 6 wounds, you can say like, all right, I'm going to ignore this one, and you just move on.
So this is a stratagem or just
no?
or
It's
just
a Trajan.
Ability? Okay.
Yeah, it's an ability of Trajan, so he can
once per game. Okay.
Once per game, he can choose to fight again, interrupt combat, or ignore a failed save.
Okay. Wow. And fight again, he can chew really through some stuff if he fights twice, right?
Against Mortarion, I will fight again all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Then straightforward, 2x3 custodian guards. I feel that the blade and the shield are better than the spear, even damage potential wise. Going from strength 6 to strength 7 to the spear, it's not really that much more of an edge that it gives you. If you really need to, you can pay 1 CP for, I believe it's called Slayer of Nightmares. it gives you a +1 to wound if you really need it. But these guys will not get into contact with T8 stuff most of the time, or T7 stuff. They don't really need this. I believe that the shooting of the pistol that they have that they can shoot in combat is more valuable than the Misericordia, the one extra hit that they also have. And they are just still tanky. In cover, they have a 0-up armor save in theory. Like you get +1 on your armor save from the shield and +1 from being in light cover. They're very tanky, but no longer the 3+. And I say sadly they lost it, but in reality, it was too oppressive. Like I've said before, I would have loved if they got maybe an extra wound, an extra toughness, or a 5-up feel no pain to compensate for losing the Invul. But for 5 points, we can't complain here.
No, I think because then you would need an AP -3 to bring it up to a 4+ Invul. So normal if you have AP -1 stuff shooting at them, or AP -2.
Yeah, you're still rolling
that is
twos.
still 2s and 3s. So there, it's really strong. Yeah.
Yeah. The prosecutors, these are now troops, which is the only thing why you include them in the army. We don't really need more anti-psyker stuff, but it might help sometimes if you do face Thousand Suns, you move them up the board. In 8th edition, I used to run a Katahs assassin because he has character protection, and he also has a CP stratagem to give fight last. I believe it was in 3 inches around him. And the Katahs assassin was 100 times better than the sisters. But because these have OPSEC and their troops, that makes them an include now. Then it's sort of a new addition, the Achilles Dreadnought. In my opinion, he has an amazing profile. Like he has a twice double strength, so it's strength 14, AP -3, damage 3 plus D3 on the melee swings. This guy, when he wounds and your opponent fails that saving roll, he will chew through almost anything. He really does the job. He also has something that Custodes sort of lack. He has strength 8 shooting, even though it's AP -2, but it's strength 8, AP -2, 3 damage. And he also has some wrist-mounted bolt guns. You can also buy some upgrades to increase the damage, but like if you have some points left, look at it, it's fine. We also give him, you can also use it once now, Eternal Penitent. It gives you an extra attack and reroll charges.
I think so. This profile is incredibly scary to the fast attack demon engines like Blow Drones or the Light Hauler, because toughness 7, you're wounding on 2s, and then the D3 plus 3 damage. Ignoring 1 damage of that doesn't help a lot. So that's 2-3 shots. Then
if you fail like 2, if you fail 2 saves. And I roll high on the damage, you're gone.
Exactly.
And most of the time he will already take a wound here and there off of your demonic engines with his shooting and stuff.
Exactly.
He only has a 5-up invul himself, but he's core, so he benefits from Trajan's aura and from the Vexilla. And this elevates him into the S tier. He also has a -1 damage innate and a 6-up feel no pain, and then due to your shield hose, a 4-up against mortal wounds. He's really good, and you have to keep him safe. But what mostly happens in the game is he will advance to the front, even out into the open, and he's sort of a like deal with him unit. Your bikers are already in your opponent's backline or threatening the backline, and your opponent has to choose, am I going to shoot the Achilles Dreadnought or am I going to shoot the bikers? The bikers you can give feel no pain, the Dreadnought or the bikers you can give no rerolls to hit and wound, and it becomes this sort of like cat and mouse game where you are offering your opponent choices while you just move up the board. And then we have the little brother of the Achilles. This dreadnought is bonkers, in my opinion. It's got a 2d6 strength 6 AP -1, 1 damage flamer. So even if he gets charged by a swarm of something, you just pay 1 CP, you overwatch, and most of it will die. And then he has standard 5 attacks, and he gets plus D3 extra attacks. Strength 7, AP -3, 3 damage melee hits. This guy also just like he becomes the Reaper, I always call him. He will just reap some stuff around him. He's core. He benefits from the Vexilla. He has a 4-up invul, -1 damage, 6-up feel no pain, and he has a -1 to be hit in melee because of his shield, and again because of the shield host, a 4-up against mortal wounds. This guy is
oppressive.
The best. Oppressive
guy.
He can tank some stuff. Really, really good. Then the Vexilla Praetor. If there is ever a points increase in the Custodes army, he might be the one to get cut. Even though he gets the Castellan Axe for free now, which is also strength 8, AP -2, 2 damage. The Vexilla Magnifica is also free now. It's the -1 to hit and gives dense cover 6 inches around him. He has that teleporter, but this is the guy that would get cut first, I believe. The dense cover is nice. It's really good against some armies, but it doesn't work on sisters. Which is the unit you want to keep safe on turn 1 so that they can raise the banners in the backfield and just do their thing. But he's all around pretty good still. We have the Virtus Praetors. Arguably, it's either the Galatus or the Virtus Praetors are the best ones. We run 2x3 Praetors. They're toughness 6. As before, but they are now 5 wounds, and that is so strong. Like a squad of 3 has 15 wounds. They have strength 6, +1 to hit on the charge. +1 to wound on the charge. You can give them fallback and shoot for 1 CP, which is also amazing. The Meltas did lose the flag burst mode. To be honest, I don't believe I've ever used the flag burst mode. And you can no longer reroll the wound roll versus vehicles. And that's why I say here, the Magna Imperator helps here a lot. Also your captain, it feels so bad when you shoot your Melta gun with your captain and he rolls a 1. And you're like, all right. And then here it's still like you can reroll it with the Magna Imperator reroll. If you fail your wound, you can maybe pay a CP and reroll that if you really need to. But like the Magna Imperator makes the Meltas so much more consistent. And then the second part is the Meltas used to be D6 damage. It's now 3 + D3, so it's more consistent.
That's the best profile.
Yeah, exactly. You used to have 1 CP stratagem, which basically said you roll 2d6 and you drop the lowest. But this is, so basically what this does is when I played in 8th edition, every turn when I shot my bikers, I would pay 1 CP for the architect munitions. That is no longer a thing that you have to do. So that's again, additional CP in your pool to do your amazing things. And that's what for me makes these bikers like amazing.
When I saw this these profiles and so on, I was just immediately thinking we need to be shot by entropy cannons or something like that. But it's so difficult with a 4+ invul, the -1 to be hit maybe and everything, right? So
And if they are close to the Vexilla, you already get dense cover, so your Plague's Scars are hitting on a 4.
But
you can also give them transhuman.
Yeah, exactly. But they have to go down some way. It's not easy.
Mostly
that's a priority target, I think, because these Melta shots, they will melt stuff.
Exactly. This is also why you don't take to the last as Custodes, because it is your bikers, And I don't even know who your second squad is. I believe maybe it's the Achilles dreadnought or the biker captain. And that's why To the Last is not an interesting one. And maybe it is. If you want your dreadnoughts to be safe, take To the Last. Your opponent will go after the bikers, and your dreadnoughts can just advance onto the field.
Yeah.
So then that was the list. We're going to secondaries now. One that's my favorite is Raise the Banners High. We've seen with our martial Katahs that we can advance and still do actions, which is amazing. So Raise the Banners, you're very defensive. Never forget that Custodes can interrupt when they're on an objective for 1 CP. And you still have your normal interrupt for 2 CP, and Trajan can also interrupt for his moment shackle. So you are the one that dictates combat. So Raise the Banners is very, very doable. Bring It Down is also very interesting. It's just very straightforward, kill stuff. That's what you want to do. Assassination as well. The codex is basically built that you're there to kill your opponent's key targets. You've noticed that like the Alaris Terminator, he can teleport into combat, and with the Unstoppable Destroyer, he can move and still do his thing against a character, and so on. Stranglehold, one of our favorites as well. Hold 3 and more than your opponent, and you're good. Engage on all fronts. If you invest in your bikers and you want to keep them safe, Engage is also a rather good one. If there is then, like, if we go into the now with the, sorry, I forgot his name. Oh, with the Inquisitor. If there is a center objective to take, you can, for example, take like Raise the Banners and something else, and then you can take like Warp Time to do your thing there. Else, I would take Psychic Interrogation if there's nothing interesting to do, and you have a lot of characters that want to come forward. And sometimes you can take Deploy Teleport Homers. Rod is really bad now. The new Rod where you have to roll with the models.
Custode, not for Custodes.
Generally, when I play Custodes, it's always really easy for me to pick 2 really great secondaries, and the third one is always like a 5-minute head scratch, like, oh, which one am I going to take, and so on and so on. So to go over it, we've talked about our strengths and weaknesses. With this list, we've made an all-around sort of like tournament list that covers our major weaknesses and pushes our strengths to the top. So we move fast and hit hard, even though we are a lot of infantry guys. The dreadnoughts move 9 inches, the bikers move 14 inches. You can still advance and shoot, advance and do actions. So you get a little bit of like strengths there. You have a massive protection against mortal wounds. You have basically 2 denies now. So the Terminator captain can deny, and the Inquisitor can deny, and you have a 4-up against mortal wounds, so shrug stuff off. We've overcome our weakness of armies that have -1 damage, such as Death Guard and the Crusher Stampede and so on, by adding D3 or more than D3 weapons into our profile. So the Achilles, Trajan, and so on, they are all there to help against this. We will use our speed to our advantage in our martial Katahs. So we will advance and shoot while the dreadnoughts do their things. And we will also reduce the randomness of our dice rolls. Now, if you play Custodes, you have to prepare yourself for rolling once, and you shouldn't feel bad. It's still a dice game. And rolling those ones will happen. And you just have to deal with it, but the Magna Imperator reroll helps with that a little bit. And then we've also improved our defenses through positioning and dense cover. Because we can advance and still shoot, we can position a little bit better, and we can still be in dense cover behind a building.
Okay, so thanks for this great presentation from the Custodes. So when we were compiling this presentation, I was scratching my head on what to do and to counter such a Custodes list as a death card, because Custodes, I mean, they are an elite force. They are more durable than death card and can strike hard and are faster. And previously I would have said, okay, just mortal wounds and stuff like that, but that's not as good anymore. And also more available object and obsec and count as many models. So I was scratching my head for a death card strong points and ideas here. So of course, as we discussed, flat damage 2 for some of the weapons is not really scary for death card, but this list has a lot of damage 3 and D3+3. Toughness 8 should help, because I think a lot of Plaguebearer scrollers, maybe Mortarion could be interesting in this list. He has the 5+ feel no pain. He can match somehow the eliteness of the opponents, and then of course the low model count of this very elite force. If we can use a mass model count, knowing that we will lose a lot of models, but be able to take and cover more presence on the board. But however, this can be difficult as death card, because the speed of these bikes, for example, is very difficult to close them down. One good thing is that we are immune to the Tanglefoot grenade, except our Poxwalkers. The Death Shroud and the Blight Lords would be on paper good, but now they have become more expensive, and it's the mass Poxwalker with Terminators list has been hit quite hard. I'm thinking strength 6 weapons or AP-2 damage 2 weapons are quite good. Like the Blight Launcher should be good, be able to do something. The Flail at close combat, something like our bolters, AP0 against the Custodes, you will be saving on, just looking at them and said, no, you didn't hurt me. I think coming into melee before with a 3+ Invul, the Death Shrouds I couldn't, with a lucky dice roll of the opponent, I couldn't hurt them. But now the Death Shroud should be able to do something, even if they are more expensive. But we need the AP to force the Invul save of the 4+. Something like a Demon Prince with a Hellforged Sword could do something. Still, maybe trying mortal wounds, well knowing that the 4+ Invul protection from the Emperor's Son, like the Plague Skull of Glothila, should be able to put a couple of mortal wounds here and there, psychic spells, etc. We discussed before also that the Foul Blightspawn, if we can fight first Bubble and his strong Flamer, that can be dangerous to the Custodes. And I guess now that you have in this list where you have a lot of high damage weapons, then I think maybe a Poxwalkers would be good, because when my experience with the Custodes, the bikes, they had the multiple salvos of the bolter fire type, and they cleared out 20 Poxwalkers. But with the Meltas, I guess they are not so efficient if we can screen with Poxwalkers. And all in all, I think when playing the Custodes, I think we have to acknowledge that we will be losing more. We will be taking more casualties than the opponent. So it's basically just sticking it in there and pray for Nurgle's blessing and keep pushing the Custodes. So I don't know if you. So, reaching to the summary and final thoughts, of course, Adeptus Custodes, as we have heard, definitely a force to be reckoned with and to be considered. They are accurate, they are durable, they are lethal and fast, and they have a lot of tricks up their golden sleeves. On paper, Nurgle's finest death card is not as competitive, but I think we still have some things going for us, like the Disgusting Resilience, which can take some of the flat damage to some of the things away there. We have some psychic. Hopefully, we can use. We can try to compensate the eliteness of the army with some horde type, like Poxwalkers on our side. So we have something also that we can try to throw at the Custodes. I think all in all, be prepared for a tough game and a tough challenge. But I think also remember that every time we manage to get some wounds there and to kill a model, it's really important. Killing one Custodes guard or a Terminator or a bike is a huge victory in its own. And now that they don't have the 3+ Invul, it should be a little bit less frustrating being in combat with Custodes. And then again, big thanks to Tanagor for providing us these insights and also sharing the material. We worked on the material together, but provided all the insights and yeah, all the summary of the codex. So very big thanks, and would be fun to play off some game. Maybe we can turn up the tabletop simulator and have a go. So with this concludes the video. Let me know what you think. Also, if you like this type of videos for other for future videos in the channel. Let me know in your comments what you think about the Custodes or strategies and the relationship to Death Guard. If you like this video, please press like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to further support my efforts, visit my Patreon page where you can get access to some more material, some results from the calculations, etc. And with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.